I've never been at a moment in time where starting, you might argue, a technical or IT topic has become such a boardroom relevant topic. AI is a topic that every CEO, every C-level in general, also lines of businesses, but also even supervisory board members or owners of companies are interested. Stockholders, they will raise their hand at the annual conference and ask the board, hey, what is our company doing in terms of AI? So I think this is a major difference to anything we have seen before.
Navigating an SAP transformation? We get it. By day, we work hands-on with people like you across the globe. By night, we share what actually works. Welcome to Transformation Every Day with Alexander Greb and Johannes Langguth, where your complex transformation becomes clear, actionable, and achievable.
I think everybody will agree that artificial intelligence is no longer another technology trend. It's changing how companies operate, how consultants work, how leaders make decisions, and ultimately how value is created. But how do you move beyond AI hype and actually build an AI-powered enterprise? In today's episode, we're joined by Dirk Häussermann, Managing Director of SAP Germany, to discuss exactly that. We talk about SAP's vision of the autonomous enterprise, why clean data has become the most valuable business asset, why cloud is no longer optional, and how AI is already transforming consulting, software implementation, and executive decision-making. So, if you're an SAP customer, a business leader, a consultant, or simply curious about where enterprise AI is really heading, I think you'll get a lot out of this conversation. So let's get started. My name is Alexander Greb, and this is Transformation Every Day. Good thing is that we're recording. Transformation Every Day. We have Dirk Häussermann as our guest today. Somebody people definitely know if you have been a member of the audience of the SAP Extras podcast. You've been a guest already 5 years ago. Great to have you back in your new role, which is not so new anymore because you've been already a few months in that. You're now MD of SAP Germany, and we also got Johannes back today.
Hey.
Great to have you here.
Great to be here.
Thank you. It's great to be here and meet you too.
Definitely. Dirk, I'm wearing, and you pointed already out, I'm wearing a polo shirt which you gave to me as a present 5 years ago, which proudly carries the slogan "Give Data Purpose" that you were strongly endorsing back then, and which has become a mainstay of the discussions about data. 5 years later, we are talking now about artificial intelligence, about business AI, and of course, very closely connected to that is the wording that to make AI successful, of course, you have to get your data ready. Are we now finally there where you dreamed back then we would be today now?
First and foremost, I want to say great to see the shirt, and it's in really good shape. I hope it wasn't in the cupboard for 5 years, but it really looks live. And, the slogan is still super valid. Yeah. I mean, back in those days, I was at SAP running BTP, or back then it was called DDM, Database and Data Management. But the slogan is as true as it was back then. And to your question, I couldn't have dreamt of this massive and fast evolvement of the AI capabilities that are today possible individually and for businesses. But what we already foresaw back in the days was that data is the fuel for these AI engines. And I can make a reference not only to the shirt you're wearing. We actually published a white paper in 2018 that we developed as SAP together with the University of St. Gallen, or spin-off of the University of St. Gallen, the Center of Corporate CPQ, sorry. And it was coined or named Generating Value Out of Data with the Help of AI back in 2018. So, it's not that this is new, and ever since OpenAI launched ChatGPT in 2022, we had this whole notion of artificial intelligence and back in the days, and of course also about the value of data and how this really drives transformation, drives value for organizations. Even now, 8 years ago and longer.
And how have the customer interactions and conversations changed in those 5 years? I mean, we've heard the slogan is 5 years old. It's still valid, but I assume the narrative that follows out of it is completely different. So, what's your perspective on that?
A small correction. I think the shirt is 7 years old, Alex?
It can be true. Yeah, you're correct, by the way.
Yeah. So, and that, Johannes, is a tribute. Time flies. But to your question, I think, the whole discussions we are having today, of course, became more main stage because it is now something that is in the hand of every private person as well with ChatGPT. But what people are realizing, and maybe that's a little bit the dip of what we are seeing as well with the excitement of AI, there's now a lot of discussion how much does it really cost, how much value does it add, is that there's a major difference between AI in a private context, where you can access all the public data that is out there and maybe share data that is not so relevant for you as an individual, and the fact how you use AI in a business context, where it's super important what data you give as a base for an AI engine to give you results, where it's super important that the AI infrastructure you build is knowledgeable about the processes that you are driving, and where it's super important about the governance, who actually has access to that data. And I think this is the difference and in consciousness of organizations and decision makers that is currently happening. So yes, massive excitement about the capabilities of AI, but then again, making it realistic, what a benefit does it really add in a business environment? Where does value really come from? And how do I assure that I don't open the entire business data of my organization to the world and make sure that the decisions I take are not mixed up with Star Wars or Hobbit or whatnot, what else is out there, and mixes up your business data as a basis for business decisions.
One of my favorite quotes concerning the, let's say, collaboration between data and AI in that context is that your business AI isn't making hallucinations, it's just working with your data. So
Sure.
This absolutely makes clear how narrow and how one-on-one this kind of connection between data quality, the way we cover data, and in the end the quality output of your business AI installation is. Where do you see the biggest progress that we in our SAP world have done in the way we handle data?
I mean, it starts with being considerate about how important data is. And then, of course, with the offering that we bring along to our customers. And maybe this circles back to your initial question about how I perceived the last couple of weeks or months after we announced the autonomous enterprise vision or strategy for our customers. It's clear that the fundament of all of this needs to be this data platform that you provide for your organization, and the data platform that consists of the data that you generate out of your own applications and mix it up with data that is relevant to you from external sources. External, I mean non-SAP sources. And, I think we have come a long way with the offering we give there to our customers, but we continue to invest there not only with our own products and services like Business Data Cloud that we announced last year, but we just come off a bunch of acquisitions that we did, one of which that falls clearly into this space is Reltio. It's a provider of master data management in the cloud. And I think put that in the mix with MDG, our master data governance product that has been sitting with us for many years, super successful. This is what's required to have a fundament, a good foundation, then for the AI layer that typically sits above this and is closely connected with we call it the autonomous suite, your line of business application solutions, and of course, Joule as the entry point into this autonomous enterprise for a user. So again, I think we have put a lot of effort and technology, but also strategy into this to lay it out and make it easier for customers to get there, to access it. Now, I would say next to the technology we offer there in the in the good old days, we would have called it databases and data management. Of course, there's other support out there with our tool chain, where we really go deep into what is the architecture of an organization, now including also agents that have been built either based on SAP technology, non-SAP technology, which I think is super important because it's not only the applications anymore. The agent, you could argue, is the application itself that you need to govern, plus the whole notion of making clear that you look at your processes end to end in order to find out where there are pockets of value you can lift with the help of it. Because coming back to my earlier statement, why AI in the private environment might give you helpful hints, in a business environment, AI is there to capture value. It's not there to just use the technology. And I think, what I see with customers where this really gets started is if they find areas where there's a positive lift of value immediately, when there's a quick lift of value, you might say.
But if you look at, that's a massive change for a lot of companies, massive opportunities ahead. What's your perspective on the readiness of those customers? Do you see different levels of speed in going there? Maybe, I don't know, smaller companies moving faster versus maybe larger companies are more slower, or are they similar in pace? What's your perspective on the pace of getting there? There is so much opportunity, but I think there is also so much untapped opportunity. So would be interested to hear your views on the adoption speed across different customer segments, if you wish.
Yeah, and there I would slice it down and say, I haven't seen an organization that is an autonomous enterprise yet. It's probably easier to build this in a greenfield, so to say, than if you have a 50-year legacy. That said, the 50-year legacy environment has more complexity, but it also has more data. So there's a good thing about this piece as well. So I wouldn't say, it's really about size. For me, it's more about people taking the action and taking processes, looking at processes and really turning them into AI-supported processes. And this can happen in smaller parts of larger organizations, but it also can happen in small organizations. So I wouldn't tie it to the size of an organization. And yes, larger organizations typically have more complexity they need to deal with. But then again, there's a tendency that there's more business, hence more value behind this as well. So the benefit might be bigger also.
When we look into your interactions that you have had with your customers in the last 3-4 months after the big announcement of the autonomous enterprise, and it became already quite apparent during Sapphire itself when you have listened to conversations between people in the halls and during the keynotes about the feedback. From my perspective, a big point and a big question, of course, comes about how do people perceive themselves, and not only their technical installation, their architecture, but also, of course, their organization AI ready in itself. Everybody, of course, is asking not only the questions about the technology, but also, of course, the organization. Where do you see, from your perspective, the low-hanging fruit where organizations should look into first to get big benefits quick and fast and clean, so that you can see as a door opener for the rest of the organizations, so that in the end we can actually achieve a massive value out of that?
Really, a couple of questions you asked now. How is the organizational setup and how is this best driven? I can tell you from the 30 years that I'm in this industry, in the IT industry, I've never been at a moment in time where starting, you might argue, a technical or IT topic has become such a boardroom relevant topic. I remember years back when we had, I was also working for other organizations, not only for SAP, where there was a new big announcement of a technology, and then we were asked, now you need to knock at the CEO office and present this. This is super exciting. So we were knocking, and the CEO, if they open, said, thank you for the visit, but please talk to my CIO. This is no longer happening. AI is a topic that every CEO, every C-level in general, also lines of businesses, but also even supervisory board members or owners of companies are interested. Stockholders, they will raise their hand at the annual conference and ask the board, hey, what is our company doing in terms of AI? So I think this is a major difference to anything we have seen before. Now, in terms of governance. So where do we see the biggest impact? When this is a boardroom topic, when the top really asks, what are we doing with AI in our organization? What are we doing with AI for our customers? And I see this, I would say, 99% of the cases, which is super encouraging. And now the question comes, where's a big impact? Where's the quick win? And this can differ. Yeah? It's different from organization to organization. I don't have this one killer use case for you. What I can tell you, however, is an offering I find super compelling from an SAP perspective. Because of course we build AI in the autonomous suite in all our applications. But a use case I think that's super clear for customers is an offering we call Joule for Consultants. So essentially, this is something where you put all the knowledge of our consulting arm, you put all the documentation of our applications as a knowledge base of this AI agent, that essentially a newbie to SAP consulting can come in, ask a question, and gets the right answer how to handle this within an SAP system. So a situation that we had for decades, where as a consulting company, you brought in people from the university who you put on projects, and they were starting interacting with the customer, with our system. And they had a bunch of questions in the evening where they then asked the senior consultant how to handle it. Now they can immediately fix it at the fingertips. So I would recommend this to any customer organization who wants to implement SAP, but I would recommend it also to any consulting company who wants to implement SAP, because potentially it should shorten project cycles and increase the quality of projects. And this is just one example I want to give you where I'd say it's where to start. We need to create cases at the customer where there's an immediate benefit, is relatively easy to explain to the audience with a business impact that is positive. And then, of course, it requires a strategy how to further roll out these cases. And this is something where we have also put a lot of effort in, where we can show our customers for each individual domain what agents and assistants being help to the user combining agents, we have already forethought, so to say, can give them out of the box. But then we are also running programs, forward deployed engineering, where together with our customers and partners, we look at process chains that we can automate that carry even higher value. So there's a lot going on. And I just yesterday had a meeting with my leadership team where I try also to bring in our AI experts and let them know what we can use internally for ourselves. And we had one instance where somebody was asking about a tool and said, this doesn't work, therefore I don't use it. And then the experts say, hey, since yesterday it's live, it's online, the feature you were missing, and then the situation immediately changes in the room. And this is maybe an ask or advice I would give. If you see something in the context of AI where you are disappointed with what's there today, don't be too disappointed, because the level and the speed of change is so fast as I've never seen it myself before as well. So just keep on pushing and, be confident. It will be faster there than we all expected. At least that's my experience so far.
I mean, one theming that's driving the industry, the adoption is actually industry, I believe, right? Because when I see Joule for consultants, that's more kind of the generic use case that might be relevant for everybody, that might be relevant for the partners, that might be relevant for the internal IT teams. But I assume there is so much variety in how you actually perform AI adoption across the different industry layers. So it would be great to get a bit of your perspective, your view on what does SAP provide in the context of industry-focused AI, industry-focused AI use cases, and maybe also some observations that you see in the customers. You mentioned the speed is fast, but I would assume there are also different speeds at different industry levels, so to speak?
Yeah, look, I picked this example because it's general. Anybody can relate to it. And we have other examples, tool for developers, document AI. So any customer more or less can use it. To your point, I mean, SAP has a super strong history in industry expertise, and we are doubling down on that as well, because we acknowledge that there are some industry cases that just are relevant for certain parts of industries or for certain industries. And we have also initiated an own unit to focus on this from an AI perspective. This is just a new announcement that just started, but I believe there will be exciting content that we can deliver on these from these industry AI solutions as well. So it's not only a generic autonomous enterprise, but we really break it down into industry content and industry AI.
Which I think is absolutely interesting, because there had been some criticism in the last months from various sources talking about the time of the use cases is over. Now we should go into strategy and architecture, which is absolutely true. But for the time being, it has been shown in the past that the use cases and the imagination that people connect with use cases and the learning of how a technology can prove an advantage for them. Use cases are absolutely important, because these are basically your first steps. And we had that in the past with the Web 1.0 and so on, and enough examples where this was the way to go. Based on this, where do you see at the moment still existing roadblocks in technology, in organizations, in attitudes towards business AI, where you say like, okay, this is still something which is out there, which is slowing down progress, which is still maybe a challenge to approach. But if we are over that, we are definitely one plateau further.
Well, there are multiple roadblocks you might call out. I mean, the biggest for me, to some extent, is customers who still believe that on-premise is the future. I mean, we have to be super clear. Without cloud, there's no AI. So you need to get your environment ready, that you have the technical foundation to get there. And then I think it has to do a lot with the governments and, clear governance models that you require, policies, approval limits, audit capabilities for AI. Yeah? And you might not like it because this already sounds very German. Yeah, we need to make sure the governance is there. But hey, again, we are dealing with one of the most precious assets of our companies, the data. So you want to make sure not everybody throws it out there in an open and public model, but you know what you're doing and you know who has access to it. So there needs to be a governance model. There needs to be a strategy, what you want to do. And again, I had a podium discussion the other day where I had one of our customers from the public sector, and it was fascinating to see what they are already doing today. And the mind-boggling thing for me was, you might argue, they are the most restricted industry and, maybe not the first ones to adopt new technologies. But if you have people who have an interest to get this done, who are fired up, they will find a way to get it done. So, it requires also, to your point, what are the obstacles? It requires someone to grab the torch and start running with it, and then find good use cases that deliver value, and more will follow. And of course, this requires also coverage from the top. It requires senior leaders that give the direction, that say, yes, we invest here, we give you the time, let's get going, let's build our strategy, let's build the first use cases where we can show this to our wider audience and make people follow. And, we see this internally by us. We have a slogan called All In on AI. We are measuring how many people are using our AI offerings. We have mandatory trainings for our organization. So you need to start to get the wider audience moving and overcome the obstacles that might be that people talk down the capabilities that are already there. It is an effort, it is a change, it is a transformation. It will lead even to situations where all of a sudden the data that your area owned is no longer only accessed by your area of responsibility. because the process that you want to optimize will grab into this area of responsibility that you thought belonged to you. So there's another governance layer you need to consider, where you say maybe the governance I used to have before in my organization is no longer the governance that I will have when I introduce AI agents. And this requires also senior leaders to take decisions and to make clear why this is important. And it's a change, and as we know from other transformation, everybody says change is great and we need it. But once it hits you or yourself, then you say, I like it better when my colleague is maybe affected by the change.
Hi there. Quick break for a short message before we go right back to the episode. Enjoying the insights and stories on transformation every day? Want to make sure you never miss an episode packed with practical tips and best practices from the SAP world, featuring conversations with some of the most interesting people in the SAP universe? Then hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform, whether it is Apple, Spotify, or any other you use. And if our podcast brings you value, we would be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a 5-star review and share it with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us. Thanks so much and happy listening.
I mean, that's a big statement. And you mentioned there's so much effort on use case identification, so much effort on actually pushing forward with AI. And I would assume that's quite a big change for SAP as well. You've mentioned you've seen other companies in the past. So I would be very interested in getting your take, your view on how has SAP changed to be ready to help customers with that, and how will SAP change even further? Because the speed of change, as we spoke about, is rapid, it's fast.
Yeah, I mean, we introduce all these AI-supported capabilities here internally as well. So, for example, when we do briefings for customer interactions, we introduce AI support. When we do customer planning at the beginning of the year, we introduce AI support. So, we have applications that out of publicly available information, annual reports and such, we generate reports for our salespeople where, depending on the persona you want to address, they get a report including a presentation. What is the biggest problem the customer addresses? What is our solutions? What are the references? Depending on the persona you talk to, whether it's the CFO, whether it's the CHRO. So essentially, we want to harvest what the AI promises. And the best explanation, at least for me, that I've ever heard on what AI is, comes from Scott Galloway, professor at NYU. Scott says AI is a time machine. And I believe this is true. It's not a time machine where you can travel back and forth in time, but it's a time machine that gives you something that you could have produced yourself just as a fraction of time. 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times faster, and maybe even at a higher quality level. So of course we want to harvest this as well. We want to be faster. We want to be more precise. And I see the first set of applications of agents that we are also introducing in our organization to support our teams. And this goes along our processes and lines of businesses. I can talk to you about what we do in sales and service and support, but this happens in finance, this happens in HR. Of course, we have, when we do our goal development, we have agents that support you to formulate the goals and stuff like that. So we of course want to be a poster child AI company, because then it's much better to convince your customers to do it as well, as we also want to be customer zero in all the technologies we are delivering and use it for ourselves. And this is true for AI as well. The point I was making is, we just come off a massive transformation where we transformed our organization from a very much on-premise focused business. Now we are talking 6-7 years back, to a cloud business. And now the next transformation follows on top of it, with transforming this business also in an AI-led organization. And this is attribute to what I mentioned before, the cycle times become shorter and shorter. By the way, 2018, where I made the reference to our report on generating value out of data, I think it was when the then Prime Minister of Canada made this famous sentence at the Davos summit, Justin Trudeau. I think back then he said, change has never been that fast, yet it will never be that slow. And I think, look at it, what's happening. It's massive. And of course, we are part of this in our reality as well.
How do you personally cope with that? Because as an MD, your responsibilities are, of course, very wide. The topics you have to cover are very complex. And I guess customers may ask you here, there, okay, personally, what kind of tools is Dirk Häussermann using and what are your personal best practices in this way?
Yeah, and you made a couple of important points that the world is becoming more complex. So I think as a leader, it's important that you cut the complexity down for your team and give them a clear vision where to go to. Setting reality and giving hope. I think this is still true of what the major task of any leader is. So I try to break it down as well and make clear what's relevant for us, where the focus should be. Of course, this is nothing new. It remains our customers. So I try to leverage the technology as much as I can towards anything that has to do with customers. And what does it mean? For example, when I do preparation for customer pitches, I try to really individualize this. And it's much easier today than in the past because you have an agent that will support you in crafting a presentation and a storyline that is tied to the customer you're talking to and not pull out the slides you have used in 20 other occasions. And again, to Scott Galloway, this was possible in the past as well. The effort would just have been so high that you couldn't afford to do it. So this is one of the things. And, the other piece I mentioned to you is also in customer preparations that we have agents supporting us to give a holistic 360 view on customers, that whenever I go in meetings, I'm well prepared and know what's going on. And therefore, agents also give me day-to-day support. Not talking about that I sometimes also use agents when I have a tough communication to maybe double check it with an agent, say, hey, make it a little more humorous, make it a little more nice. And it's fascinating what you get there. And again, I think a wonderful example, I could have done it myself, but I'm just faster. Do I use this text then 100%? No, but 85%. So there's already big help. And what we're also doing, and this comes back to what I mentioned earlier, we are using it more and more also when looking at our data for forecasting, but also for learning on results that we have driven and, finding patterns of where we struggle to then go deeper and decide on countermeasures.
It's absolutely true. When you have, for example, a presentation when you have a concept and so on, there's nothing better than to give it to Claude or whatever, and you just say like, grill me, find any weaknesses and so on, or say like, what could somebody who is skeptical, what could he use, or how could he approach and attack these kind of argumentations that are there. And it's quite amazing what AI comes up with, where I say like, oh, I absolutely did not think of that. Yeah.
Maybe funny side story. I use some toolings to simulate different personas and have them talk to each other. So they talk to each other. I transcript it and have conclusions coming out of it. So it's very fascinating that you can even use committees with different, like somebody who's more innovation minded, other are more defensive, keeping the status quo. It's fascinating what's possible today, right?
Yeah, and I give you another one. I think, and this is now not SAP technology, but it's valuable for what we do. This is, and I won't name the tool, but you can use a podcast, throw it into the tool, and the tool slices it down to the key messages this individual gave. There's a podcast 1.5 hour of a CEO that I meet. I cannot listen to every podcast 1.5 hours, so I just get the excerpt and I can click on the individual pieces that are relevant for the upcoming conversation. I mean, that is super helpful.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of cool stuff. And to Johannes' point, this is what I mentioned earlier, it's about preparation. So therefore, it really helps humans. So the question whether agent will take over my job, I don't think so. Because, it will just make me better and make the individual discussions I can have with my customers, with my partners, my teammates better, because we come faster to the point, and if we both do it, are better prepared, and the result will be better. So I think I see again, speed up of the process with a potentially better outcome.
Absolutely. And if you look at layoffs that happened actually in the last few months and were by media and so on, or by managers attributed to the advent of artificial intelligence, I think that's quite lazy argumentation. Yeah, because that's not the reason why these organizations really lay off people. The reasons have been differently, at bad decisions which are lying years back and so on. So I think, and to quote Scott Galloway when he was saying, when he was asked, will AI kill our jobs? He referred to it as every generation had its technology will kill our jobs moment. It's just that this technology has the higher marketing budget. Yeah, in that respect. And I think this is actually quite fitting because when you look at the companies who are highly investing in AI, you see there are just more open jobs out there, for highly competent people who can work with their technologies. And I really, to be honest, have not seen any layoffs from myself, which were absolutely believable and credible attributed to artificial intelligence until now.
We will see. I mean, there's also this other quote where people say artificial intelligence will not take your job, but somebody who knows how to work with artificial intelligence will take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's absolutely correct that we are not yet far away in that deep ocean of possibilities, to be able to judge and to estimate what really comes out. But the best thing, like always, is not to lie back, but to jump right into it and try to work with it as best as possible and to learn and try to use the benefits that this technology is offering. Absolutely.
Yes, agreed.
Coming to partners, because SAP is, especially in the last 24 months, very much going forward in pushing partners into its duties, not just being the implementing organ, but being sellers, being transformers. In context of the autonomous enterprise, what role do partners really play on the roads? Do you see they are accelerators, or unfortunately, in many cases, still the bottleneck?
I mean, I'm a big fan of partners. In fact, I've been with a partner organization before I rejoined SAP, so I had a view from the partner booths to SAP as well. I believe it's clearly that partners can be accelerators when it comes to implementing or combining SAP technology with industry know-how, this whole notion of data, AI architecture, governance, and change. Let's be clear, this what we mentioned before, these projects are typically driving a lot of change in organization, transformation in organizations. And I think their partners are well suited to support this. And, they can become bottlenecks when the discussions purely stay in implementation mode and they avoid AI data and AI architecture conversations. So again, here's a big opportunities. When you look in the partner field today, you see that there's also a challenge. Publicly listed organizations that are focused on implementation are under a lot of pressure these days as well. But there's an opportunity, And for example, this tool for consulting topic I gave you earlier, then people say, but if a partner does this, the project cycles become shorter. So they sell less
hopefully.
things. Yeah, but this is good news. This is good news because the faster customers come to generating value out of the project, the faster the next project starts. I mean, there's so much business out there that I don't worry at all about this topic. What I worry about is that things take too long, become too complex. Organizations are not standardizing and preparing themselves technologically for this next step with AI. and therefore get frustrated and spend a lot of money rather than harvesting the value out of it. I mean, when you look at where SAP invested in the last couple of years, one of the great additions to our portfolio was this WalkMe acquisition. I don't know if you're nodding, so you're aware.
Absolutely.
Why? Because this is a digital adoption platform. And, ever since I have been in this industry, I was always confronted with discussions around what does the license cost? What is the daily rate of a consultant? How many days do we need? When is the go live date? And this is super important. But from a customer point of view, the actual interesting piece starts only then. When do my people use the system? Do my people use the system as I intended them to use it, or as I thought through that they should use it, because this made up my business case? And this is exactly where WalkMe tips in and supports our customers in, shortening the time to value and supporting their end users to get excited about the system and use it in the way it's intended to be. And, when I talk to customers about it, then they give me additional benefits because they said, now we can measure the transformation we have foreseen. Because we see, how the usage increased, how our processes go through faster, how we're saving money because everybody stays compliant. And this wasn't possible before this acquisition, at least not in a way that we now can do it. So there's a lot of interesting things happening next to just technology discussions and pricing on licenses and how to get a project started. And again, this is something our partners can use as well, and it's in the interest first and foremost of the customers, but then again of our partners and us in SAP as well. So long answer to your short questions, but I believe there's a big opportunity for
looking at the partners again, and I think you mentioned, that they should focus on AI, they should speak about data. So same holds true for SAP. So there is a lot of demand for AI talent. What's your perspective on where should all those people come from? Like how do you see like talent pipelines evolving in the era of AI? I mean, we could clearly argue about prompting skills now, but I think there is more to it. So
Absolutely.
I would be very interested to hear your talent development perspective in that regard. Where all those people come from that everybody needs these days?
Nah, that's a super good question. I would say they come from the people we have already, because as I stated before, we wrote the white paper 8 years ago. I think the early starts of AI is somewhere in the 1990s at the University of Munich, when you look in the history books. So it's something that has evolved. And therefore, people have evolved as well. And it's good if people have an understanding of, what does master data management needs to look like. What is this thing with data quality management? What about data governance? I mean, these are all people we have today. So for them, it's an evolvement of their profession. And of course, we need to reskill others. And then again, I tell you, I'm amazed. I heard these days that there's a kit out there where they pay 100 million per year or 250 million for the next 2 years. There was a takeover from one of the large US companies to another. I mean, this is insane. A 24-year-old kid, I mean, even soccer players at that age don't earn that much money. So it's pretty interesting what's happening in this market right now with AI skills. But yes, I mean, we grow that skill by developing them, by exciting existing people that we have there. But, it won't be enough. Everybody of us needs to cope with it. Everybody of us needs to take care of themselves to some extent, learn. And it is not happening by looking at one training and then you're the expert. You need to do it yourself. You need to find examples. You need to make experience. You need to overcome the frustration that every new topic carries, but that's how you tackle it. But
Absolutely.
as an organization, it's important that you make clear that there's no other way around it. All in on AI. There's no shortcut. There's no sneaking out.
And what I think, if we bring all of these kind of perspective together, the big opportunity that we really have now in our industry, and especially bringing talent and partners together, we have now the possibilities and opportunities to cut off that big problem. And you mentioned it with the long implementation times that make progress so dull and so stressful, so that people, in the end, that organizations, when they would have to go to the next step, were still so exhausted that we say like, oh, 5 years or 7 years after our big implementation, we cannot do something new again. Yeah, we still have to wait. It's not that people say like, okay, I've done now this jump to the next level. I'm so excited. I want to make immediately the next one. But they always try to keep speed down and say like, hey, after 5 years, yeah, we can talk again, but we will have to work now and to have to save our investments now. I think this is now the possibility to crash this kind of cycle of slow innovation. And this is what I'm absolutely excited about. Definitely. Dirk, looking at the time, I know your calendar is very full, but if you look at your calendar, where can people meet you in the next weeks and months if they want to talk with you?
They can meet me at LinkedIn 24 hours a day, but I also, of course, have upcoming exciting events. There's the SAP AI Now Tour in November for our customers. I think we're at the Big Bang Festival. I try to use formats that we have as SAP, but I also look at third-party events that are not organized by SAP, but where we are taking part of. And customers, of course, I try to visit frequently, daily, virtually, but sometimes also on-site. Yeah, but I think the easiest way to contact is LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thank you very much for spending your time with us. It was great talking to you, and I'm really looking forward to the next conversation.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Johannes. And I have to say, as a Swabian, that you can hear by accent, it's really cool to see someone with an 8-year-old shirt that still looks so sharp.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.